Yes, you should still be considering the OnePlus 12 as your next upgrade going into 2025. Even with the OnePlus 13 not available here in the US, I haven't even really looked at many videos regarding the OnePlus 13, and I think China or wherever it released already. But here in the US, it's not available. You still only have the OnePlus 12 as the flagship device from OnePlus, and it's still a killer device. So I've been using it again for the last month and a half now. Ever since I made the switch back to Android, I was on the iPhone 15 for a little while, but now I'm back on the Android side and I'm using the OnePlus 12, and I've been really enjoying my time with it. There are a few small quirks with the software that are still bugging me. Otherwise, it's still one of the best bang for the buck flagships available out there. I looked at some of the Black Friday deals happening right now, and you're definitely going to be seeing this after Black Friday, but those deals may still be going on or may happen again throughout the holiday season. But I saw this particular model, the 16 gigabyte RAM model with 512 gigabytes of storage for around $649. Brand new, that's a really good price. And if you're a little bit strapped on cash and only have, say, $500, $600, then these base model, 256 gigabyte model with 12 gigabytes of RAM is $549. That's a really good price. You can compare that to maybe the iPhone 16 base model, the Pixel 9 based model. I would much rather go with one of these OnePlus devices over one of those devices because you get way more out of this phone compared to those base models. So without further ado, let's go ahead and tackle about it. First, I'm going to talk about the build and design, and overall, it's got a silky finish to it, and it's got a weird texture to it that personally I'm not a huge fan of. OnePlus tends to do this with all their devices, does make them stand out and feel different, but I'm not a huge fan of them. I've also noticed that I've been recently using a lot of smart rings, and with this OnePlus 12 in particular, the feel, or I guess the sound that it makes whenever it's coming into contact with the metal aluminum from the ring to the glass or the aluminum sides of the OnePlus 12, it just makes a weird sound, and it feels really weird as well. So it just irks me a little bit. So I definitely always have to rock a case to make sure that I'm not coming into contact with the device itself, or just take off the rings themselves. The OnePlus 12 overall has been holding up pretty well. I'm pretty sure at the beginning when the phone first released, there were a decent amount of quality control issues with either the side panel here or the aluminum frame not being properly attached to the device, meaning the adhesive was visible. There was fogging issues with the cameras as well. But in my experience, I haven't had any of those issues. The device overall is a really big phone. They made the phone wider compared to the OnePlus 11, and that did add to a little bit of the weight. But overall, if you're a fan of big devices, then the OnePlus 12 will fit your needs for sure. And the phone is IP65, water resistant, and dust proof. I would not submerge this phone into any kind of water, and I would also be a little careful, putting this underwater directly at any point. Maybe spraying it every now and then is probably okay. Like I've used this phone in the shower, or I do use this phone in the shower all the time. I prop it up in a MagSafe stand or holder, phone holder for the shower, so I can either listen to music or watch a YouTube video while I'm doing my business. But that's the most I go with it. I get a splash of water here and there, but otherwise I don't submerge this, or I don't constantly put this underneath water to get it fully wet. And in case you're curious, the case I'm using, I'll link that down in the description, but I do enjoy it mainly because it allows me to see the green color of the device. It's not the most nice feeling or grippiest feeling case, but it does add a little bit of grip. And then you also have MagSafe capability. So this is great for either MagSafe chargers, or me personally, I've been using a MagSafe kickstand, which helps me prop this up to watch videos. And on top of using a case, I also always use a screen protector on my devices. The OnePlus 12 does have a curved edge display, which does make it difficult to install screen protectors, but luckily OnePlus does include a pre-installed plastic one from the factory on all new devices. So I've actually kept that screen protector on pretty much since I purchased it and used it. And I have picked up a good amount of micro scratches and some big scratches on the screen protector itself. I don't know what the bottom display looks like. I'm assuming it's probably clean as hell, but I also have one small bubble building up inside of the screen protector. It bothers me a little bit, but not enough for me to want to take it off. And that display underneath, I believe it's Corning Gorilla Glass Victus too. So even if you were to remove the screen protector, it should withstand lots of scratches and even big drops. And just continuing on with the display, it is a 6.8-inch display. Like I said, it is a big display, and I am a huge fan of it just because it makes the aspect ratio just a little bit more normal compared to a traditional Samsung phone or an iPhone, because previously with OnePlus 11 and I think the OnePlus 10 Pro as well, they all had a slightly, just very slightly narrow display. It wasn't too different, but enough for me to feel a difference. And with the OnePlus 12, they've made this feel just right, in my opinion. Now, the OnePlus 12 display is phenomenal as far as quality. It is a 1440p AMOLED display up to 120 Hertz with a high brightness mode of I think around a peak of 4500 if I'm not mistaken. It can get very bright in outdoor conditions and if you're watching HDR content. Now, me personally, I'm normally not. So I usually get around maybe the 1200 to 1600 high brightness mode peak nittage that it's usually advertised for. But regardless of the numbers, this gets plenty bright enough. So when it comes to the display quality overall, you won't be disappointed. And you also have a ton of different settings you can change with the display as far as the color tuning of it and also changing it where it's adaptively changing from either the refresh rate, or you can also have the resolution change from Full HD to 1440p depending on what you're doing on your display. I will say though, for some reason on the OnePlus 12, 720p in YouTube looks horrendous compared to a different other phone. Like if you compare this to say a Samsung or an iPhone or maybe even my Pixel 8 Pro that I have right now, you'll notice a difference in the 720p mode. And the reason I point this out is because normally YouTube, at least for me, defaults to 720p. So the quality definitely looks pretty horrendous compared to other devices at 720p. Just changing it to 1080p will fix that issue, but that's just something that I wanted to know because I'm constantly noticing that. Around the device, you do have your traditional buttons such as your power button and your volume rocker on the right hand side, which I personally like because one, the power button is easy to reach on one hand, as well as the volume rocker is not mistaken for the power button because I know the power button is the lowest button. And you also have your alert slider on the left hand side. And something nice that I noticed is that with the latest updates to the software, they for one have added a little dynamic island animation at the top near the camera, but also when you have your phone off and you have the always on display enabled and you're toggling between the different alert modes, it'll actually show you on the screen what you're changing it to. So I think that's pretty cool and pretty convenient so that you're not trying to guess, if not that you would probably have to guess, but trying to figure out what exactly you're switching it to. At the bottom, you do still have a physical SIM card slot. You can use a physical SIM card or you can even use eSIMs if you want. I personally, I've been using an eSIM on my OnePlus 12 and I haven't had any issues. I've been using it with Mint Mobile. The dual firing speakers are overall pretty solid in my opinion. They definitely maybe lack a little bit of oomph compared to other devices, like especially compared to an iPhone. But for the most part, I have no complaints with the OnePlus 12 as far as on its own. If you're just listening to music or watching movies, I listen to YouTube videos all the time when I'm either taking a shower or just preparing stuff, doing stuff around the house, doing chores. And this gets plenty loud enough during those situations. The OnePlus 12 also has an IR blaster, which I will say, I use maybe once a week, not very often, but it definitely comes in handy whenever you need it. There's been a couple of times where here at home, I can't find a controller to the TV, and I'm either just trying to quickly change to a different application, lower the volume, or just turn it off or turn it on. And with the OnePlus 12, I can just use this device to quickly do that. And the OnePlus 12 has one of the best haptic systems out there. They call it Haptics. And my favorite part is that you can change between a crisp and gentle mode and adjust the intensity with a bar. But right there on that screen, you also have a little demo that literally shows you how your phone will feel with various haptics. And it feels very nice. And I can't decide between crisp or gentle. I often switch between both. Right now, I'm on crisp, but most of the time, I'm just constantly going back and forth because overall, the haptics are very nice on the OnePlus 12. And for biometrics, the OnePlus 12 has both facial recognition and an optical fingerprint sensor underneath the display. Both, in my opinion, work pretty well for the most part. If one fails, usually the other one backs it up. I tend to say this a lot for all of my devices, but that tends to be the truth. An ultrasonic fingerprint sensor would be a nice improvement, but the optical one does the job overall. And plus, they've added a new animation that looks pretty clean, in my opinion. But either way, it works well. The facial recognition fails like pretty much in every other device I've used that are Android, and it's not the 3D one that the iPhone uses. Basically what that means is that sometimes during dark, low light environments, the OnePlus 12 isn't able to recognize me, as well as when I have the phone far away from me or at a difficult angle. But otherwise, 99% of the time, it works just fine. It's quick, it's fast, and I'm easily able to get into my device with no problems. As far as performance, you do have the latest, well, I guess maybe not the latest anymore, but the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which in my opinion performs really well, both in just overall performance, but also staying cool to the touch and efficiency and overall battery life. So the performance of this device is phenomenal. I honestly don't really push my phone too often anymore. I usually use a computer if I have to do more intensive work, or even a tablet sometimes. But even then, when I have to push this device when maybe recording video or I'm playing some games, constantly doing some multitasking, switching between apps here and there really quickly, I've had no issues running into any kind of hiccups or random delays. None of that happens here with the OnePlus 12. Occasionally, maybe I'll run into an app that is either just bugging out, and that's usually the app itself that maybe needs some compatibility updates either with the phone or just overall with Android. But for the most part, like I said, the OnePlus 12 is no slouch, and you won't be disappointed at all when it comes to performance. Which I'll just talk about battery life as well. Like I said, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is known for being a pretty efficient chipset, and with the OnePlus 12, it gets phenomenal battery life. I'm talking at minimum, you're gonna get at least 20 hours of battery life. That's total usage over time, not 20 hours screen on time, but 20 hours usage. I guarantee you're at least gonna get that, which pretty much makes it a whole day. So for me, I'm getting a whole day with this device. And for my screen on time, usually it goes around 5 to 6 or 7 hours of screen on time. And there's been a couple of days, not always, but there's been a couple of days where I've been able to get a day and a half, literally almost 36 hours of total usage with the OnePlus 12. I also don't remember the last time I was worried to make sure I plugged this in overnight so that it was fully charged in the morning, because either I'll have enough juice to get me through the rest of the day in the morning, or if I did forget, I can just plug this in for around 25, 28 minutes, 30 minutes at most, and this will fully charge to 100% within that time frame. That's enough for me to go to the bathroom, take a shower, maybe go for a quick run. I leave my phone behind so I can leave it charging while I'm running, and it'll be perfectly fine by the time I come back and I'm ready to go to start my day. So fast charging on this is phenomenal. I think it's around 80 watts here in the US, but if you go internationally, it's around 100 watts. So not only does this have great battery life, but if you forget to charge with the proprietary charger, it is blazing fast compared to the competition here in the US. And you also do have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. I believe that was something that was missing in the OnePlus 11. But honestly, I don't use it, so it's no big deal to me. I think if you have a proprietary wireless charger, you're also able to get around 50 watts of SuperVOOC charging. But again, I don't have that or don't use wireless charging in general, so it's not a big deal to me. I do want to quickly touch on cameras. I will say for general photos and videos, you'll be fine. If you're in normal conditions, daylight conditions, you'll be more than satisfied with the photos and videos you'll be getting out of this device. Selfies, I don't take too many. I'll take maybe a few for you guys to sample, but otherwise they're there. I will say the integration with other applications like Snapchat, Instagram, those are the two main apps that I would personally use. It's not there. There's no integration there at all, so the quality is definitely going to be deteriorated or bad compared to the traditional camera. So if you're really big into social media, then I wouldn't consider a OnePlus 12 at all, mainly because of that. But otherwise, I think overall you'll be satisfied with the cameras. For video, you can go up to 8K on this, and the zoom capabilities, I think you're able to go from 0.5x or 0.6x of ultra wide all the way to about 120x for photos, and I think around 18x when it comes to videos. So overall, it's a versatile camera system. I don't personally take fully advantage of it. I'm showing you guys some samples as I'm talking here, but for the most part, like I said, I'm fine with it. There were a couple of times where I tried to use this for some action shots. I recorded a video and I was using the OnePlus 12 during that video, and it didn't do too hot. So for some reason, when I put it into Premiere Pro, this could have been an issue on my end where I maybe didn't plug it into the video correctly. For some reason, the frame rate was really choppy. So I did record this on 60 FPS to be able to get some decently smooth video while I was running, get some POV shots, but it just wasn't coming out too hot in the video itself. So I'm not sure what I did or what happened there, but it did let me down, and it also wasn't 1080p, so it didn't look too great either. It's something that the camera is not capable of doing. Action mode at a high resolution, I think the iPhone and the S24 Ultra are able to do at least 1440p, if not maybe even 4K. But for the average person, I think you'll be more than satisfied for just the photos and videos. All right, now as far as software support, I did recently get an update to Oxygen OS 15 with Android 15. So there were a couple new things that I noticed that were introduced with the new UI look. Small tweaks, most of them were just aesthetics that were changed. So new features that allow you to change a couple of ways that the UI looks and ways you can interact with the UI. So first I'll start with the always on display. So they've introduced a seamless transition always on display, which basically means that whatever clock style you set on your lock screen will also be set on your always on display. So that when you turn on your phone, the clock on your always on display will seamlessly just open up and transition into the clock on your lock screen. You can also see here that you can add a depth effect to your lock screen now. Now, I do wish that you could edit the lock screen features and settings directly by holding down on the lock screen and then going straight to the settings. Unfortunately, you do have to go all the way and reset up your wallpapers to be able to change any of those settings. At least that's the only way I found so far that I can do that. If you go to the wallpaper and style, you'll see something called Flux Themes. I'm not entirely sure where this name comes from, but this is where you can set up those different wallpaper / lock screen always on display setups. I don't really see the purpose of using them because you can reorder them, but I'm not quite sure what's the point. You can change between them if you wanted to, but there's not much that really adds to this because you can't edit each individual one. This is again where it comes into play, where if there's like a little pencil icon to be able to edit these. Oh, what the heck? You have to click on the clock itself. Wait. Wow, I just learned that. Okay, so apparently you can edit these. So you have to click on the actual wallpaper instead of apply. Oh, wow, I feel dumb now. So apparently you can edit these. So you just have to hold or click down on the wallpaper itself and you'll be able to go into the edit mode. But I'll still complain that you should be able to hold down here on your lock screen and then go into that edit mode. So I reset my wallpaper here to the same one, and you can see here, this is where you'll be able to change those settings. So first, you can add your depth effect to your lock screen. This is where you'll be able to see that the clock itself gets hidden behind anything in the image that was able to detect that you can add some depth to it. In this case, I'm using a mountain, so it's pretty easy for it to detect that. So you can see, hides the clock behind the mountain there. And whatever clock style I choose here will also, again, be applied to my always on display. You can also see here that you can pick steps or the weather. Personally, I'm always going to go with weather. I'm not sure where the steps come from. I want to say it's probably from the phone itself and not from a third-party service. So for example, I'm using a third-party watch, this being the Mavoy TicWatch Atlas. So whatever data is on here, I don't believe will come directly into the lock screen itself. In fact, we can just test that. If we go to steps here, apply. Okay, looking at our steps, we're at 1,700 steps here versus the Mavoy TicWatch Atlas. If it'll focus up, we are at 8,000 steps on the watch itself. So yeah, not taking the steps from any third-party service. It's going from the phone itself, I believe. You can also add styles to your wallpapers. So by that, you are able to add blur or set a glass pattern to them. This just changes the way the wallpaper itself appears. Personally, I don't have to do that on my lock screen because I like to see the wallpaper itself, but I do that on my home screen. You can do it on a home screen wallpaper here. You can go to style and then you can just add a blur effect to it and then select one of the different patterns that they have available here. Personally, I like the ripple effect, so that's what I'll be using myself. So they've now added a couple of things you can change on the lock screen. Before, everyone had the same clock style. You couldn't add any kind of effects to it. So they're getting there. There's not as many options as, say, iOS or OnePlus has. And maybe even, I think the Pixel might have a couple of extra features. It's still a decent start. So they're starting somewhere, and this is better than not having anything at all. One thing I will keep complaining about that they still have not fixed or maybe added a toggle to change this is that whenever you get notifications, once you view them once on the lock screen, they disappear and you have to unlock your phone and then go into your notifications to see that notification. Now, once I get into the home screen here, you have pretty much everything you had before. They've added a few new things. So you can hold down and to go into your edit mode where you can then edit the widgets. You can add widgets. You can move around your widgets and folders. You can see here that I like to use the expanded folder. This is a feature that's been available for quite a long time, but it's pretty cool where you can expand those folders. So if I expanded these, as you can see, these three ones are expanded. These ones down here are not expanded. So anytime I click on these folders, I have to open the folder first and then click on the app. And on these folders, I can open them up again if I wanted to by clicking on the bottom right corner. Or I can quickly interact with these apps and open them up right away by just clicking on them without having to actually open the folder first and then clicking the app. It saves you an extra step, but it's convenient to be able to add more apps onto your home screens without having to keep them individually added onto your home screen. So the best example here is that you have the different ways you can set up your apps on your home screen, either individually, as I have up here with these three apps, or in folders that you have to click and open each folder, or an expanded folder that allows you to either expand a folder again or just quickly open up these individual applications. They've also added a few new icons. So they've added a radiance icon and a shadow icon. I think these were just trying to replicate the iOS icons. So radiance is just a new look to the classic look. They've just slightly adjusted the default icons that they have here. Then the shadow is trying to take the dark mode icons. So it'll take all of your icons and put them into pretty much add a black border to them to make them look dark mode, which I kind of like. So that's why I'm currently using them. It is a bit of a cop out, but I think it looks overall okay. One thing I noticed is that in the settings here, they need to update the names to be the US version. So you can see they're in Chinese instead of English. So once I change these, you'll see that it is going into English, but the default name for some reason is set to Chinese. So that's an interesting bug that they forgot to QA. It looks like it's across all of the settings here when you go into your app icons. The next thing I'll talk about is the notifications and quick settings. So they've now added the ability to split them up. So if you swipe from the left, you have your notifications. If you swipe from the right, you'll have your quick settings. This again just copies the way iOS is doing it. So the control center, the notification center is split up. Here, it's the exact same idea. It does make the icons a bit bigger to interact with. And you also have an additional row instead of just 3, but it does take up the whole screen here. And something cool is that you can swipe between them. So if you open up one section and just want to go to the other section, you can swipe from the top, but once you swipe down, you can also swipe between them. And something that I want to point out here is that it's very easy to know when to open up a pop-up and when not to open up a pop-up, because if you click on the icon itself, it's always going to turn off the setting. So these icons down here, these will always be a toggle on and off. But if you click on the name, such as these ones up here, it'll open up a pop-up instead. So if you want to open up a quick little way to access more settings, you can do that by clicking on a name. Or if you just want to turn it off, you just click on the Bluetooth icon or the icon itself. And I believe you should be able to change which ones appear at the top. So if I, for example, maybe grab Do Not Disturb, put it up here, click done, you can see here, little pop-up, or turn on, turn off. One other small change that I noticed is that when you lower and raise the volume, it first starts out with this thicker slider so you can easily grab it and increase it with your finger. Or if you start clicking, it'll turn into a smaller, thinner progress bar as you're increasing or decreasing the volume, which is a small touch in my opinion. And I like that as you're clicking it, it actually moves and bounces. So it's small little tweaks like that that makes it look clean and sleek. Other than that, they've pretty much kept it the same. No other major features that I have come across. Something that the OnePlus 12 is missing is a suite of AI features. You do have access to Google's Gemini, so you can set that up to be your default assistant, and you can access Gemini live as well. But we're missing things like circle to search. I thought it was supposed to come with this Android 15 update, but maybe it's still in beta and still needs tested. It'll come out later in 2025, but right now, it's not available, and I do think it is pretty useful to be able to, be able to quickly find in Google things by circling an object, an image, when you're maybe on Instagram or Reddit. I also use it a lot whenever I'm trying to extract text. So if I go to the comments here of this Reddit post, I would circle to search, say Brexit means Brexit, and try to circle that and try and copy it. Because right now, Reddit does not allow you to copy text. So if I wanted to copy that, I couldn't. You can use the extract content feature by simply screenshotting what you want to extract content from. You'll get this option to extract content. It'll analyze it. So any text that it finds, it'll show it and allow you to select it and be able to then copy it. I do find it's a bit difficult to select the text that you want to copy, especially if it's a long sentence. So it's not the cleanest experience in my opinion. It could be better because it doesn't give you the option to expand or decrease what you've just copied. So this is a workaround for right now, but I definitely think circle to search would be pretty convenient to have on here. Especially since all my other devices that I've used, or my other Android device that I've used, I've gotten so used to having it, so not having it on the OnePlus 12 is definitely something that I always miss. One other new feature that I noticed is this new application that's available for iOS users. So if I go to share an image from my OnePlus 12 here, there's going to be an option for share with an iPhone. What this allows you to do is that OnePlus uses I don't think it's a proprietary application. It is called Kxnt, so OnePlus Connect. Basically, you have to have your iOS buddies download this application so that it can directly send this file to that app on their phone. I don't think it's going to be very helpful because, again, you do have to make people who have an iOS device download another application. And it's kind of like telling someone, hey, download WhatsApp or download Messenger so we can message instead of using the standard messaging app. Now, granted, they have added RCS, which is a whole new different conversation. So RCS is available on here with Google Messages. So with the whole ecosystem talk, I personally haven't dove into the OnePlus ecosystem. You have the earbuds and the tablets, and I personally haven't used them. So I'm not sure what kind of continuity or connections they have between those devices. I've only ever used the OnePlus 12 solo with other third-party devices such as this Mavoy TicWatch is what I'm using as my watch of choice. And then for my earbuds, I'm actually using a pair of Sony earbuds instead of the OnePlus buds. So as far as ecosystem, it's mainly just the Google stuff that I've been using on the OnePlus 12, no other direct OnePlus devices. The last thing I want to mention is the software support. So you started out with Android 14, OS 14 when the OnePlus 12 first came out. And now we've gotten the major update of Android 15 with OS 15. And overall, they promised 4 years of major OS updates. We got 1, so now we're down to 3 more. I think 3 more years is plenty enough for someone who wants to use his phone for that amount of time. But if you're looking for longevity, you'll definitely want to consider something that's offering more, such as a Pixel or now the S24 series of devices. So in the end, the OnePlus 12, still a fantastic phone to consider. Right now, it's at a pretty good price, and it's only going to get cheaper from here once the OnePlus 13 is available. So if you're looking for a brand new phone, get this either now or wait for the OnePlus 13 to come out to get it even cheaper potentially. But otherwise, I think it's still a great phone going into 2025. So with that being said, hopefully you guys found this video helpful. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and peace.